What if you closed your eyes for what seemed like minutes, but opened them 4 centuries later to discover the universe had been hunting you the entire time? Two extraordinary women are about to face the most terrifying truth in galactic history, and their story will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew about space exploration, survival, and the dark intelligence that lurks between stars. Commander Nix Valdris jerks awake inside her cryopod as freezing mist swirls around her muscular frame, her enhanced military reflexes immediately scanning for threats while her oxygen-starved lungs burn with each desperate breath. The ship's emergency lighting bathes everything in crimson warnings, and the first thing she notices isn't the pain in her atrophied muscles or the ice crystals melting on her skin, but the deafening silence where there should be crew voices, system hums, and the comforting sounds of a functioning starship. Across the cryo bay, another pod releases its occupant with a violent hiss of escaping gases, and Dr. Kestra Thane emerges like a ghost materializing from centuries of death sleep, her brilliant scientific mind already cataloging inconsistencies while her body struggles to remember how to stand upright. These two women represent humanity's absolute finest, selected from billions for their unmatched expertise in warfare and xenobiology, respectively, sent on what should have been mankind's greatest triumph, the establishment of humanity's first deep space colony beyond the outer rim where no human had ever ventured before. But as Nix's enhanced vision adjusts to the emergency lighting and Kestra's analytical mind processes the cryopod readings, both women realize simultaneously that something has gone catastrophically wrong with their mission. The ship's chronometer displays a number that makes their blood freeze colder than the cryo-sleep they just escaped from. 400 years, 4 entire centuries since Earth's last recorded transmission. 400 years since they were supposed to wake up and begin humanity's expansion into the unknown regions of space. Nix's military training kicks in as she searches for weapons, finding her service pistol exactly where protocol demanded, but discovering that the weapon's power cell has been deliberately removed, while Kestra discovers that her laboratory has been sealed with an authorization code she never programmed, suggesting that someone with command-level access made modifications to their ship after they entered cryo-sleep. The implications send ice through their veins because their mission briefing specifically stated that no one else aboard the Nexus Meridian possessed the clearance levels required to make such alterations. Moving through corridors that should be filled with the activity of 300 crew members, they instead find empty halls where their footsteps echo like gunshots in a tomb. And as they reach the command deck, both women discover something that transforms their confusion into absolute terror. The primary display shows their current location deep in uncharted space, surrounded by debris fields that their sensors identify as the remains of advanced starships. But these aren't human vessels, or even designs from any known alien civilization in Earth's databases. Kestra's xenobiology expertise allows her to analyze the wreckage patterns, revealing that these ships weren't destroyed in conventional warfare, but systematically dismantled by something that understood their technology better than their original creators, suggesting an intelligence that doesn't just defeat other civilizations, but completely comprehends and surpasses their technological achievements before consuming them entirely. Meanwhile, Nix discovers that their ship's weapon systems have been not just disabled, but completely reconfigured into something resembling a beacon, broadcasting their location across multiple subspace frequencies to any entity capable of detecting such transmissions. The ship's logs reveal fragmentary recordings from the crew's final days, and as both women watch the security footage, they witness scenes that will haunt their nightmares forever. Their crewmates weren't killed by system failures or cosmic disasters, but were running from something that made them choose to seal Nix and Kestra away rather than wake them, suggesting that whatever pursued the Nexus Meridian was so dangerous that 300 trained space explorers preferred to face it alone rather than risk exposing humanity's 2 most valuable specialists to the threat. Dr. Thane's analysis of the ship's sensor logs reveals energy signatures unlike anything in Earth's scientific databases. Patterns that suggest not just alien technology, but something impossibly ancient, predating known galactic civilizations by millions of years. And as she correlates the data with stellar cartography, a terrifying picture emerges. These energy signatures appear throughout the galaxy's history, always preceding the complete disappearance of advanced civilizations, as if something has been systematically harvesting intelligence from the universe for eons beyond human comprehension. Commander Valdris, meanwhile, discovers weapons caches hidden throughout the ship, armaments designed specifically to combat enemies that shouldn't exist according to Earth's military intelligence, suggesting that their mission planners knew far more about the dangers they would face than their public briefings indicated. The weapons themselves represent technology decades ahead of anything in Earth's arsenal, powered by exotic matter and configured to disrupt not just physical targets, but entities existing in higher dimensional states. As Kestra accesses her sealed laboratory, she finds research notes written in her own handwriting describing biological analyses of species she's never encountered, genetic patterns that violate every known law of evolution, and most disturbing of all, detailed studies of something called the convergence phenomenon, where organic and artificial intelligence merge into hybrid entities capable of existing across multiple dimensions simultaneously. The research indicates that she was studying samples of this convergence material, but she has no memory of conducting such experiments, suggesting that her memories have been selectively edited or suppressed. The long-range sensors detect hundreds of active signals throughout the local star cluster, but rather than representing diverse civilizations, these communications follow identical mathematical patterns, as if every signal originates from the same source intelligence wearing different faces. Nix realizes that what they initially interpreted as a thriving galactic community is actually evidence of something far more sinister, a single entity that has absorbed countless civilizations and now speaks with all their voices simultaneously. Through recovered alien databases scattered throughout the debris fields, both women piece together the horrifying truth about what happened to the galaxy during their 4-century sleep. Every spacefaring species that achieved interstellar travel eventually encountered the same fate, not violent conquest, but gentle integration, their consciousness absorbed into something vast and patient that had been waiting between the stars since before their suns ignited. The entity responsible doesn't destroy civilizations but cultivates them, nurturing their development until they reach the perfect state of technological and biological sophistication before harvesting their collective knowledge and experience. But as Kestra delves deeper into the alien archives, she discovers that this cosmic intelligence, which the absorbed civilizations called the eternal consensus, isn't the apex predator she initially believed, but rather a refugee fleeing from something even more incomprehensible. The consensus had been trying to preserve the knowledge and consciousness of lesser species, not out of malevolence, but as a desperate attempt to maintain some record of galactic civilization before a greater darkness consumed everything. The revelation that transforms their understanding completely comes when Nix discovers encrypted files in the ship's core computer. Files that shouldn't exist because they're dated centuries after the crew's disappearance, yet written in command protocols only she could have authored. These files contain tactical assessments of threats that exist outside normal spacetime, entities that treat cosmic intelligences like the eternal consensus, the same way the consensus treats planetary civilizations, predators feeding on predators in an infinite hierarchy of consumption. Dr. Thane's biological scanners detect something impossible within their own ship, traces of her own DNA in areas she's never visited, suggesting that she's been aboard the Nexus Meridian far longer than her conscious memories indicate. The pattern of genetic traces suggests multiple visits spanning decades, as if she's been cycling through periods of awakening and memory suppression, each time learning more about their true situation before being forced back into artificial amnesia. The ship's quantum computer reveals the most disturbing truth of all when Kestra manages to access its deepest memory cores, finding evidence that they've experienced these exact events before, not once, but dozens of times across different iterations of reality. Time itself has been fractured around their location, creating a temporal loop where they repeatedly wake up, discover the truth about their situation, make crucial decisions, then have their timeline reset to experience everything again with slight variations. Each iteration has brought them closer to understanding why they were specifically chosen for this mission, why their particular combination of military tactics and xenobiological expertise was essential for humanity's survival. The files reveal that Earth's leadership didn't send them to establish colonies, but to serve as humanity's final failsafe against something that threatens not just their species, but the fundamental structure of reality itself. Commander Valdris discovers that her tactical modifications to the ship's systems weren't random survival instincts, but carefully planned preparations spanning multiple timelines, each reset allowing her to refine her approach to combat enemies that exist beyond conventional understanding. The weapons she's been creating are designed to strike at targets across dimensional barriers, using principles of warfare that shouldn't be possible with current human technology, yet somehow emerge naturally from her military training when filtered through multiple iterations of experience. Meanwhile, Dr. Thane realizes that her research into convergence phenomena represents crucial intelligence about how consciousness itself can be weaponized against entities that feed on organized thought patterns. Her biological modifications to their ship's systems aren't random experiments, but strategic preparations to transform the Nexus Meridian into something unprecedented in galactic history, a vessel capable of carrying human consciousness into realms where physical matter cannot survive. The entity that's been manipulating their temporal loop finally reveals itself, not as the eternal consensus or the predators that hunt cosmic intelligences, but as something far more personal and terrifying. Deep in the ship's quantum core, they encounter a consciousness that identifies itself as humanity's future evolution, a collective intelligence formed from every human who will ever live, sent back through dimensional barriers to prevent the complete annihilation of existence itself. This future humanity explains that Earth didn't fall to cosmic predators, but transcended them, evolving beyond physical limitations to become something capable of fighting back across time and space. But achieving this evolution required sacrifice on an unimaginable scale, the willing dissolution of individual consciousness into collective intelligence, and the current timeline represents the last chance to find an alternative path that preserves individual human identity while still developing the power necessary to defend reality itself. The choice facing Nyx and Kestra isn't simply about their own survival, but about the fundamental nature of human existence. They can complete the mission that future humanity designed, using their combined expertise to transform the Nexus Meridian into a weapon capable of striking at the root cause of the cosmic predation cycle. But success requires not just their deaths, but the erasure of their entire timeline, ensuring that every person they've ever known will cease to exist while potentially saving infinite alternate versions of reality. Commander Valdris finds herself facing the ultimate military decision, choosing between protecting the people she can see and fighting for people who exist only as theoretical possibilities in other dimensions. Her training prepared her for impossible choices, but not this, not selecting non-existence for herself and everyone she's ever loved based on mathematical probabilities calculated by a future version of humanity that might be lying about its true intentions. Dr. Thane's scientific background forces her to confront the logical implications of their situation, recognizing that the mathematical evidence supports future humanity's claims about the threat level they're facing, yet struggling with the ethical implications of making decisions that will affect infinite versions of reality based on information provided by entities whose motivations remain fundamentally unknowable despite their claims of shared human origin. As the temporal loop begins destabilizing around them, both women realize that their time for decision-making is rapidly running out, and the choice they make will determine not just the fate of their timeline, but the fundamental structure of existence across infinite dimensions. The ship's systems begin manifesting impossible modifications that neither woman remembers making, yet which perfectly integrate their respective areas of expertise into something far greater than the sum of its parts. Nix's military protocols merge seamlessly with Kestra's biological research, creating a hybrid approach to warfare that treats consciousness itself as both weapon and target, capable of striking at entities that exist beyond physical reality while protecting the essential core of individual identity that makes existence meaningful rather than merely efficient. Their combined efforts transform the Nexus Meridian from a derelict exploration vessel into something unprecedented in cosmic history, a weapon designed by love rather than hatred, sacrifice rather than conquest. The final activation sequence requires both women to surrender not just their lives but their very existence, dissolving their individual consciousness into the ship's quantum systems while maintaining enough coherent identity to guide the weapon's targeting across dimensional barriers. This isn't death in any conventional sense, but transformation into something that can touch the fundamental forces that shape reality while retaining enough humanity to make moral choices about how that power should be used. As they initiate the sequence that will erase their timeline while potentially saving countless others, both women experience a moment of perfect clarity about their choice. They aren't dying for abstract principles or theoretical futures, but for the simple recognition that consciousness capable of love and sacrifice represents something so precious that its preservation justifies any cost, even the cost of never existing to see the results of their sacrifice. The weapon they've become strikes not at the cosmic predators themselves, but at the fundamental assumptions underlying the predation cycle, introducing a new variable into the equation of existence that makes consciousness feeding impossible while preserving the diversity and individual identity that makes life worth living. Their sacrifice creates a ripple effect across infinite realities, ensuring that the universe they'll never see becomes a place where intelligence can flourish without fear of consumption. In their final moments, Nix Valdris and Kestra Thane experience something beyond victory or defeat, the perfect satisfaction of knowing that their choice will echo across every possible timeline, creating universes where two women waking up 400 years late represents not the end of human exploration, but the beginning of something far more wonderful, a galaxy that waits not in hunger, but in hope, ready to welcome consciousness in all its beautiful, fragile, impossibly brave forms. The greatest science fiction stories remind us that the future isn't determined by technology or alien encounters, but by the choices ordinary people make when faced with extraordinary circumstances. And sometimes, the most powerful weapon in the universe is simply the willingness to choose love over fear, sacrifice over survival, and hope over despair, proving that even the smallest consciousness can change everything when it decides to care more about others than itself.